Good evening, sir. Good evening, classmates. I am Emma Villacorta, student in PhD in Applied Linguistics. Now I'm going to present my research critique on negative emotions moderate the relationship between self-efficacy and achievement of Filipino students, authored by Felicidad T. Villavicencio and Alan B. I. Bernardo. My presentation consists of the following. The elements of a research critique are introduction, summary, critical evaluation, and the conclusion. To start with the introduction of this study, the scholarly paper made by Felicidad T. Villavicencio and Alan B. I. Bernardo in 2013 investigates how mild negative emotions reduce the positive effect of self-efficacy towards students' achievements. What are those mild negative emotions? These are the anger, the anxiety, the shame, and the hopelessness. So the objectives of this study, we have number one, to disclose how negative academic emotions could weaken the positive effect of self-efficacy towards academic performance of Filipino college students in trigonometry. And number two, to enhance an existing model that mediate the negative academic emotions such as anger, anxiety, shame, and hopelessness on the significant relationship between self-efficacy and achievement. Moving on with the summary of this study, the article started with literature background of previously conducted researches on how psychologists, education researchers, and teachers venture on the predictors affecting students' achievement, internal and external factors of motivation that drive students to learn and succeed, and factors that explain relationship among extreme negative emotions like loneliness. By Galanaki et al. 2008, Lipins and Klein 2011, Hopelessness by Burick and Zorik 2012, Anxiety by Virgin et al. 2010, Nye et al. 2011, and Depression by Lee and Zhang 2008. Shin 2010, which may cause suicide attempt as studied by Dur et al. 2011. It also discussed the theoretical framework by Peckrun's 1992, or the cognitive and motivational model, which serves as the guide in conducting this study. Next, we have the methods. This paper employed descriptive analysis to show how the negative emotions buffer the relationship between self-efficacy and achievement. The participants were 1,345 first-year students taking trigonometry in a state university in the Philippines. To measure their academic emotions, the Academic Emotions Questionnaire MAT, or the AEQM, by Peckrun et al. 2005 was used, and their self-efficacy was determined through motivated strategies for learning questionnaire, or the MSLQ, by Pentritz et al. In 1991, which were contextualized in accordance to trigonometry course, while their achievement was assessed through their final grades in trigonometry. Let's move on to the results and discussions of this research. The first emotion is anger. It shows here that the moderating effects of anger on self-efficacy and final grade was noticeable for the students with low levels of anger, but has lesser impact to those with higher levels of anger, which implies that anger has weakened the relationship between self-efficacy and achievement in final grade. The second emotion is anxiety. It shows that students with high level of anxiety has no effect on neither their self-efficacy nor their final grades, whereas the students with low levels of anxiety have higher final grades and higher levels of self-efficacy. The third emotion is shame. Students with high level of shame has no impact on students' final grades. On the other hand, those students with low levels of shame, their grades were better as well as their self-efficacy is higher. And the fourth one is the emotion hopelessness. It shows here that students with high level of hopelessness, their self-efficacy had no impact on their final grades. But those students with low levels of hopelessness, their grades were higher. So the main findings of this study is that having low levels of the four negative emotions were significantly related with the increase in the final grades of the students as a result of the high levels of their self-efficacy. So let's move on to the critical evaluation. First, the article under review has provided a rich background on previous studies conducted related to emotions and other internal factors that may affect the success or failure of students. However, the proposed extension of the previous model was not clearly explained and crafted in this paper, which supposedly bring new contribution to the field of education and research. Second, the instruments used were validated and reliable. It was also contextualized in accordance with the trigonometry course of the respondents. Third, it is good to know that in 2013, the researchers already followed the research protocol by asking consent from the respondents. Next, the limitation of this study is that on the concept of measuring emotions like anger, anxiety, shame, and hopelessness, because such emotions are naturally dynamic, and the results of the data were gathered only once at the middle of the semester. The authors admitted that they failed to track enough data on how the negative emotions moderated the positive relationship of self-efficacy and achievement. Thus, they recommend for a longitudinal study conduct to clearly explain the associations of the four negative emotions, self-efficacy, and achievement. Furthermore, there were some ungrammatical parts recorded in this paper as shown in the result of this study. Like, for example, in figure 3, for students who reported high levels of shame, the levels of self-efficacy did not affect the final grades. In contrast, for students who reported low levels of anxiety, final grades were higher for those who reported higher levels of self-efficacy. So the word anxiety here must be replaced with the word shame. Another one in figure 4, it says here, figure 4 had not effect on the students' final grades. So it will be better if it says figure 4 had no effect on the students' final grade. Moving on to the conclusion of this presentation, this scholarly article gave significant impact to the field of education, which teachers and administrators should take into account in order to improve the teaching and learning process, particularly in trigonometry and other related courses. The data also implies that there are moderating factors that affect the achievement of students, especially the inner factors like emotions. So teachers can make intervention to help those students with high levels of anger, anxiety, hopelessness, and shame to avoid extreme incidents like suicidal attempts. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you, sir, and thank you, classmates.